Okay, good morning. Thank you for being patient. Today is, it is 9:08, Thursday, August 8th, 2024, and I am calling to order the meeting of the Los Angeles County Probation Oversight Commission. I am Eduardo Mundo, Chair of the Commission. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing from our panelists, commissioners, and the public today on a number of important issues. You'll recall that I mentioned during the last meeting that Commissioner Sean Garcia Lays had resigned, and we are actively recruiting his replacement. We'll have more on that in just a minute. And before I continue, I have Wendy, who will make an announcement of another resignation.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to announce that Commissioner Frankie Carrillo has recently announced he'll be resigning from the commission to focus his efforts on his campaign. I'd just like to say a few words of gratitude about Frankie. As many of you all know, Frankie was certainly not new to the world of probation reform, criminal justice reform, when he was appointed as one of the inaugural commissioners. And then he was elected by his peers to be the first chair of the commission. I'm looking at my staff because I think we're having a voice issue. Oh, it's a camera. Okay, so if people can hear, I think I will keep going and we'll get the camera issue fixed. Thank you. Frankie was elected as the first chair, served as the chair of the commission for the first 2 years, and really through his humble leadership, we were able to develop what the Probation Oversight Commission has now become. I will remain ever grateful for that work. I also just wanted to say something about sort of the core value of the commission, which is our people-centered approach, and how much Frankie embodied that work. I had the joy of going with him to a number of the commission, to a number of the facilities, camps and halls on a variety of occasions, and Commissioner Carrillo is like a magnet to the youth, especially the young boys in the facilities. He speaks to them with care and kindness and dignity, and also as someone who they can relate to because of his own experience. But that was not my only experience. He also had magnetic ability to talk to staff and was kind and thoughtful about the way that he interacted with the staff of the probation department, as well as the community-based organization. So we thank him and we'll miss him. And that does have an impact on our, oh, and I should say Supervisor Solis will be nominating his replacement shortly. So we look forward to that. That does have an impact on our quorum, which means that we now only have 7 members, which reduces our quorum to 4. And so we do have quorum to begin the meeting this morning. And I also failed to mention we are recording. As everyone knows, we are streaming onto YouTube and WebEx, and the meeting will be recorded and available later. Our apologies for those of you watching online for the camera issues. Oh, did we just get it fixed? Okay. All right, great. I'll turn it back over to Chairman.
On a personal note, I met Frankie before I became a commissioner, and he was part of the team that interviewed me to become a commissioner and championed me. He also pushed me into this leadership role of the chair and has helped me along, so I'm going to miss him. In particular on a day like this where I forgot my glasses, so I want you all to bear with me because I am reading what is really blurry, but I will read slower and try to make everything on point. So give me some grace today. Frankie did want to learn everything about the department. He did really care about the probation officers and the support staff. And the more he was involved, the more he thought about that and balanced it. So I know that we will miss him. And I think that the people who were able to meet and speak with him at the institutions will miss him too. So finally, while not on the agenda today, I want to thank the probation department for providing a snapshot data that we requested during the last meeting. The data will allow us to continue our research and focus our efforts to collect and share what it really means and what it shows. So in coming meetings, we hope to be able to provide everybody an opportunity to understand who's housed in our institutions and how diverse they are and how difficult it is to manage this population with regards to its needs. So again, thank you, Probation, for such a timely report and pretty comprehensive. It had more information than we anticipated. And for somebody who's a data geek, it's going to be hours of fun sharing that with you. So I will now turn it over to Wendy, our executive director, to explain how you can participate during today's meeting and and then she will call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Mundo. As always, we welcome those of you who have joined us in person, those of you who are joining online on our WebEx, and those of you who are watching online on YouTube. I really believe in public participation, and I know that it was the original intention of the board to encourage public participation through this commission. So we'll provide a number of opportunities for you to participate today. You also, if you don't want to actually participate in the meeting, are welcome to write us an email at info@poc.lacounty.gov. You can do so anonymously, or you can do so with your name. We'll share it with the public record if it's received before 5 p.m. today. Now, the way we're going to do this is we'll go through each agenda item. You can find the link to the agenda on our website. Chair Mundo will introduce the item. There'll be a presentation, if any. We do have a few presentations today. And then commissioners will ask questions and make comments. Then we'll go to public comment. During your public comment, you'll have 2 minutes to make your public comment. I also welcome you to ask questions during your public comment, in particular on today's agenda, since we're presenting some Probation Oversight Commission reports. And then we'll go back to commissioners and panelists to address the public comment and take any action if necessary after that happens. So please remember to speak directly into your phone so that we can hear you. And I'd say the same thing for the commissioners and panelists. Speak directly into your microphone so that our live and virtual attendees can hear you clearly. I'd like to ask for you to do me the favor of stopping speaking immediately when your time ends so I don't have to interrupt you, because I hate doing that. Make sure your public comment relates to the subject matter of the item and remain respectful of each other in the forum. If you're here to participate, if you're in person, you just walk to the podium, very easy. If you've joined via WebEx, you use the little raise your hand function, which is the tiny hand button at the bottom of the screen. And if you're calling into WebEx, you need to dial *3 on your phone, and that will raise your hand for us, and we'll call you. We'll call you by your phone number when it's your turn. You'll need to press *6 on your phone to unmute, and you also may need to unmute yourself on WebEx even after we unmute you. If you have any trouble, please feel free to send an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov, or you can send a message in the chat. That's the best way if you're on WebEx. Also know that if you are on YouTube, you cannot participate in the meeting. You need to log on to the WebEx, which you can do through the link on the agenda. As I said, we're broadcasting live today on YouTube, and we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There you'll be able to see the full meetings if you miss them, but also some really beautiful and useful recaps that our team creates after each meeting. Please follow our social media accounts to know we have some exciting town halls that we're looking forward to over the next couple of months that will be at different times, including some evening times to encourage participation from families and people who aren't able to come during the day. So follow us at LA County POC for more information. Buenos días, bienvenidos. Ya se ha iniciado la conferencia en persona y vía WebEx. Si le gustaría hacer un comentario público después de una cuestión en la agenda, por favor haga clic en la imagen de la mano y abriremos un micrófono. Si está escuchando la conferencia por teléfono y quiere hacer pregunta, tiene que presionar *3 y le llamaremos por su número de teléfono. Si prefiere hacer sus comentarios en español, le daremos el doble del tiempo, que serán hoy 4 minutos, y podemos proveer traducción al inglés. Al iniciar su comentario, nomás avísenos. I'm now going to call the roll. Commissioners, please respond when I call your name. Commissioner Canales is absent. Commissioner Jackson is absent. Commissioner Kakani? Commissioner Lewis will be joining us shortly, and we'll make a note in the minutes when he joins us. Commissioner Meredith? Commissioner Terry? Here. And Chair Mundo? Thank you. So with 4 out of 7 members, we have quorum, and Chair Mundo, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's proceed with item 2, the approval of the July 11th meeting minutes. Wendy, do we have any written public comment or live public comments for item 2? We do not. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the July 11th meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the July 11th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Kokani. A second? Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none. Commissioners, please vote with a voice vote. Motion carries. And now we will move on to agenda item 3, the creation of an ad hoc committee on commissioner recruitment to fill the vacant at-large commissioner position on the PLC. Just a reminder to all viewers, 5 of the commissioners are appointed. The at-large is selected and by an ad hoc commission, and then we send it to the board for approval. The members of the ad hoc committee will be Commissioner Dolores Canales, Diane Terry, and myself. The purpose is to continue the recruitment process for our vacant commissioner position. We will review applications, conduct interviews, and recommend 2 to 5 candidates to bring before the full PLC at our next meeting in September. We will discuss the top-ranked candidates and vote to recommend 1 candidate to the Board of Supervisors, who will then consider our recommendation for official appointment to the PLC. The ad hoc will disband after the position is filled. Commissioners, at this point, I would like to open it up to comments and questions. Commissioner Meredith?
Just for clarification, the ad hoc's reviewing applicants, presenting it to the POC. We will then vote for it to go to the board.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, although I'm very happy to report that we have received a number of applications. So I think there will be a process by which the committee will review those applications to rank them and determine whether some of them are not qualified based on the really specific requirements of the ordinance, and then recommend a small number of candidates to come before the full Probation Oversight Commission. Not the whole list of candidates.
No, I just wanted to make sure that we had the say in it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have any public comment in the room about this process? Or if you're online and want to click the raise your hand function? Okay, so we'll move on to vote on creating the ad hoc.
Thank you. I move that we create a new a new commissioner ad hoc committee that will dissolve once the new at-large commissioner has been selected and appointed. Can I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Meredith. Wendy, please facilitate the vote for us.
Okay, so we're voting yes, no, or abstain to create the ad hoc new commissioner subcommittee. Commissioner Kokani?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Mundo? Yes. So with 4 members voting yes and 3 members absent, the motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. So moving on to agenda item 4, we will hear a report from Project Director Dr. Sara Gongora on the 2024 Campus Kilpatrick Inspection Report. Sara, the floor is yours.
Sorry about that. It's a big room. Took me a second to get over here. So good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Sarah Gongora, and I'm a project director with POC over programs and services, and I lead the formal annual inspections that we do. So first of all, I want to thank our commissioners who conducted the inspection at Campus Kilpatrick, and to all of our probation, Department of Mental Health, and Los Angeles County Office of Education and community-based partners and young people who participated in the inspection. We did the annual inspection of Campus Kilpatrick on May 16th. We sent that report to probation, but we didn't receive a response. So we have already published the report. It's on our website and attached to this agenda if you'd like to follow along at home. So as much as Campus Kilpatrick gets talked about for being the newest and most modern, well-equipped probation facility, other aspects stand out that became the focus of our 2024 inspection. This is the only facility consistently using a model based on trauma responsiveness and teamwork amongst professionals. From all angles, it appears that Kilpatrick is an environment where youth thrive. The partnership-driven LA model training that occurred years ago continues to support a cross-departmental understanding of youth development and trauma. This approach was seen to directly benefit young people there, and reports of individual growth amongst the youth really stood out. Having partnerships rooted in respect of one another's professionalism was acknowledged as directly contributing to this facility culture and the safety of the facility. And this was remarkable because it wasn't only observed to us by professionals who kind of have that language to express that, but also from young people. So steps to replicate these practices and the actions taken to develop this culture should really be looked at to see how that can be replicated across different facilities that may not look the same as Kilpatrick or have the same small population, but really thinking about how to creatively create this in other spaces and places. So with this in mind, we still did observe a lack of full commitment to the LA model. While the rollout happened years ago is what has led to the culture at the facility, a review of the Kilpatrick handbook led us to notice that the newly implemented developmental stage system is derived from a different model called the positive youth justice model. The integration of outside models appeared somewhat redundant and does not align with the board's established priorities and prior investments for implementing the LA model. During the inspection, it was reported that the population at the facility is capped at 20 due to insufficient infrastructure, including plumbing and insufficient staff housing. Research should be launched by the department to remedy these issues as soon as possible so that the facility can be used to its full extent to provide youth ready to transition over from Barry J. Neidorf SYTF as soon as possible. 2 cottages that could house 12 youth each sit empty currently. Similar to the POC's 2023 inspection findings, there's a need for the probation department to use this facility to its utmost capacity as it represents the closest example of reimagining detention spaces and practices to take on a youth-centered and rehabilitative approach. Probation and LACO both reported staffing shortages during our inspection that prevented the full usage of state-of-the-art facilities. And that included numerous physical, vocational, and educational opportunities for youth in places like the state-of-the-art kitchen and the woodworking shop. And that was also reported in last year's inspection findings. One probation officer at the facility with a passion for coffee was taking on an informal role to teach young people barista skills. But again, without the formality of funding or making this her designated role, this left the sole vocational program at risk of basically being ended at any time that this individual needs to get pulled. So if county staffing options are limited, probation should explore partnerships with community-based organizations to see how others might help to utilize the resources so that age-appropriate vocational trainings can be available on site. Very happy to bring this report to you all and happy to answer any questions or comments you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for all of your work, and to Jennifer Ochoa Garcia for her support with this inspection, and the commissioners. I just want to clarify one thing you said about the staff housing. We've said this so many times, but I know we sometimes have new audience members, so I want to explain it. So probation staff at Campus Kilpatrick are on what is called the colloquially the 56, which is a very compressed work week, which means that staff work 2.5 days in a row and they sleep at the facility. That is the schedule at Campus Kilpatrick and the other camps, and it requires there to be enough housing for staff to sleep. Campus Kilpatrick was built with, I want to say it's 15 staff sleeping quarters. And so the idea originally with the construction was that some of the staff would be on the 56 and others would not, but all of the staff are on the 56. So that is the physical infrastructure restriction that keeps the population from being able to be expanded unless there were other sleeping quarter options. Did I say that right?
You got it.
Right.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dr. Gongora. Very nice report. Commissioners, do we have any questions or concerns? Commissioner Terry?
I had a question about, I know throughout the report you referenced the collaborative de-escalation training. Do we have a sense of, I don't know if you can answer this, but what that actually looks like? If when an incident is happening, has anyone been able to kind of explain what it is? And then my second question is, do we know if that is the same de-escalation training that other facilities receive, or how is it different?
So I don't think there's an ongoing push for a cross-departmental de-escalation training where there's a specific protocol put forward. But what was explained to me is that I think it was in 2017, there were consultants brought from another jurisdiction, I believe it was Missouri, and their Missouri model, to help talk about how every single person in the facility is there to have a trauma responsive approach. And I think that the way that probation, Department of Mental Health, LACO, and Juvenile Court Health Services, so JCHS, how they have woven this and making it their own is to really tag team. So when like one professional has a rapport with the young person, they will try to talk with them. And if they are reaching the end, they will tag in somebody else, or they'll talk in a group and work together, knowing that they both have rapport with the young people. I think that there's also, and this may be just the availability of clinicians or the availability of time in the facility because of the low population, but it seems like people take the time to find out what happened. It sounded like a lot of people ask questions before jumping to conclusions about what a young person is going through or what is behind their behavior. And that seems to be something, I don't know if that came directly through the training, but it seems to be something that the departments have been able to forge together and maintain over these years. It was shared with me specifically that cross-departmental trainings aren't currently happening. Not at Kilpatrick, and I haven't heard about it in a significant way anywhere else either.
I just want to respond that we do have some pretty spectacular, I don't know other way to describe it, outcome data about whether or not their de-escalation training works, which is that there have been basically no incidents of violence at the facility since they changed the use to the SYTF. It's really incredible. And I think I had the opportunity to be there during the inspection and talk to a few of the youth who I have seen at other facilities, including Los Padrinos and Barry J. And it's remarkable just the kind of the change in their demeanor and their faces and the way that they talk about how much more relaxed and safe the environment feels. So I think you'll see in the inspection report, there's a lot of recommendations that are along the lines of, could we replicate some of this great work at other facilities?
Commissioner Meredith.
And I just want to point out that they did have a gardening going out there, vegetable garden that the kids really enjoyed. And they had a canine program out there that they wish they had more of out there. They were working at raising the dogs and all that. I think one of the things that helps that environment out there is the serenity of being located in those mountains. Because actually, a couple of you said it's kind of nice because we get to see actual wildlife. And I know a couple of days before we got there, there was a mountain lion sitting on the front lawn. But I was very impressed with the facility. I think the design of how the cottagers are set up are very collegiate-like. So it takes away the custodial feeling and more of I'm at an educational facility.
Commissioner Kakani.
Thank you so much for this. I know these reports are shared with the Board of State and Community Corrections, presumably shared with the board. I'm just curious, like what type of conversation normally happens with probation? And if we were expecting someone from, I mean, I know that there is, I believe, the superintendent from Barry J, but that feels kind of disconnected from this report back on Kilpatrick. But were we expecting someone from probation to be able to engage in a conversation?
Before we even share the draft report with the commission, we share the draft report with probation to ask for their feedback on the report. In the past, we have occasionally received some feedback. Sometimes it's things that we have written in the report that are wrong. An example was a report last year we drafted had incorrect hours for when mental health staff were available, and probation corrected it. We corrected it in the final draft, so you never saw the mistake. No one ever saw the mistake. Sometimes when we're recording information on the day of, things get said in a way that is misinterpreted by us or commissioners. And so that feedback loop is really important. We did not receive feedback on this report, so I'll just say that. The second thing is that, now I'm not going to remember how long ago it was, but it might have been January of 2023. Supervisor Hahn, in responding to our inspections report, asked the department to reply to the reports, in particular to the recommendations and findings. That has also not been done. That wasn't a motion. It was a request that happened in the board meeting, but we would really like to do that. We do have an opportunity at the end of the day and during the day to debrief with leadership at the facility, which is helpful. We certainly bring up to them any immediate health and welfare concerns. We do that, and you all do that with any of the formal and informal inspections that we do. But yes, the feedback loop with probation would be something appreciated. I will say Superintendent Raley is the superintendent over Kilpatrick as well, although in his defense, he has been in that role for a very short time, and we welcome him to Los Angeles County. But I want to give you the opportunity to respond if you wish.
I just want to know if we have an update on the plumbing issue. It seems like such a waste of space to only have 20 young people. I think I read 2 out of 3 cottages being used. We know that Barry J is a very different facility than Kilpatrick. It is a very different culture. It is a very different feel. I mean, it's palpable, right? And so I think the more young people that we can have at Kilpatrick, the more young people have the opportunity to heal and ideally have the opportunity to succeed. So just wondering if we have any updates as it relates to plumbing and the housing for staffing, or I don't know what it's called, rooms.
First of all, let me make sure I get the microphone the right distance. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be part of the Los Angeles Probation Department. Chief Deputy Epps was unable to attend this morning, so I'm attending on her behalf. But she looks forward to being back, I believe, at the next meeting. It's her intention. Specifically regarding Kilpatrick, which I will actually be at tomorrow, and to see Judge Espinoza, and I'm trying to make it there at least once every week. I can speak to the issues with plumbing. They're actively being worked on. Construction is going on while I'm there. So in fact, the parking lot is difficult to get through because they're tearing up the pavement and putting new pipes in and that sort of thing. So I can tell you that I've witnessed with my own eyes that they are working on that situation.
Do we have a timeline on when
You know,
things will be updated?
I can only tell you that I'm watching the construction crews in the parking lot, so I know they're working on it. I don't have the estimated date of completion in front of me, but I can certainly find out what their proposed date is. If you ever worked in capital improvement plans or other projects before, I can tell you that sometimes, even when they provide a date, it doesn't quite work out that way. But I can definitely find out what that date would be.
I mean, I get that. I respect that. But I think it's helpful to have an anticipated date. So it's something that we can follow up on and understand where what the barriers are, what the issues are, and how we can get more young people there and be able to share that publicly.
And regarding the housing, so there are different concepts which might enable increased numbers. And I've heard of a couple of different approaches to that, but I think that they were trying to address the plumbing first. Before anything else could happen, it wouldn't matter because you wouldn't have the plumbing sufficient to proceed on that. So, but I'd be happy to look more into that as well.
Okay, appreciate that. And then my, I guess, second set of questions was related to the, it's like wasted space. The kitchen there is incredible. That wood shop space is incredible. And it seems like such a loss to not have programming or dedicated staff to be able to support young folks and engaging in those spaces. I mean, there were like half-worked projects in the woodshop space, making it very clear that kids were there one day and the very next they were not because something suddenly ended. So as the superintendent, do you have any insight on bringing in contracted folks to provide programming in the kitchen and in the wood shop?
Yes.
Can you share more?
The challenge there is in part the remote location, which is part of what makes it great, but it also limits the number of staff that can live nearby, right? We can only have as many staff as we have the housing for. And that also can impact the number of contracted agencies that will go in as well. We have been making some progress in that regard. I think the other commissioner mentioned the dog program, for example.
Marty's Mutts.
And I was actually on the phone as recently as yesterday to find a way to resume that program there. So I think we're making some strides in that area, but I'd like to get the details and then I can present them to you.
Okay, but you don't know if anyone was working on that? I mean, because I think we visited in May and August now, and as of May, it was clear that those programs had not been there for a while. So you don't know if anyone had been working on that or trying to secure a contractor?
I can only speak for what I have observed since I've arrived.
Okay.
And I can tell you that those questions have been raised as far as how to reactivate programs that might have, there might have been challenges regarding a particular provider or some other kind of situation. And we're working to restore a lot of those kinds of trades and vocational training and educational training and practices.
Yeah, I appreciate all of what you're saying. I just feel like it's been a long time where we hear these words. We are working on, we are exploring, we are investigating, we are following up. And at the end of the day, it means that young people are still waiting and that we are still dealing with a, $430 million institutional budget that is not being spent on things that we know would have positive outcomes on young people. So I appreciate what you're saying. I get that you're new, and I'm just saying this for whoever might be listening, that it's a little exhausting to hear that, like, we're looking into, hope to get back to you, we'll get some information. So if we could get some specifics on either what happened that resulted in those community-based organizations seizing their contract or probation seizing that contract, and who you all are talking to get back into the facilities and what the status is of those conversations, that would be much appreciated, because concrete information, I think, moves us forward in a way that sometimes the answers we get from probation does not move us forward.
Understood.
Any more questions, commissioners? Thank you. Can someone make a motion to approve the Campus Kilpatrick report as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the Campus Kilpatrick report as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Kokani. And Commissioner Meredith, second. Wendy, do we have any written or public comments for item number 4?
No written public comments. If there's anyone in the room who'd like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium. And if you'd like to make a comment online on WebEx, please use the raise your hand function. If you're calling in, dial *3. And I'll do the timer for 2 minutes. Welcome, Mr. Bell, and you can get started.
I just wanted to point out the success of Kilpatrick has a lot to do with the officers that work there. There's a lot of veteran officers that are part of that team. They work a lot with these kids. They do a lot with them. They put in a lot of effort, a lot of their own time. They come in and do a lot of overtime to really work with these kids. And a lot of the success of Kilpatrick is becoming them. And also, Kilpatrick has success because there's accountability. You know, we can't forget that. Kilpatrick has accountability. These young men that come in there, they know if we do something in there, we could go back to Barry J. There's accountability. I don't want to say consequence because there's, that make people upset, but there's accountability for your actions. So if that's some things we could take and start bringing it to other facilities as well. We bring in accountability and we increase our strong officers, encourage them. When we have reports like this, excellent report, and reports like this, make sure we mention that the officers are the ones that's out there really doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Shutan. I have a question for the doctor in her presentation. You mentioned as part of the model, there was a portion of the model that those who worked on the model and were starting to work it went outside the model for a separate or a different model that you referred to as duplicative. And I'm wondering, was there any questions as to why they went outside the original model? And why would they have used a separate duplicative, but apparently different model than the one that was prescribed?
So happy to answer that. And thank you so much for posing that question. After the fact, I had taken a handbook and looked at it. So I was not able to ask the question during the course of the inspection. I think that would be a very good question for probation to answer because I also am not sure. After I found that it was a different model, I quickly went to Google and went down that rabbit hole and kind of didn't understand. I tried to see what other jurisdictions used it or what the precedent might be for integrating that. And I just personally couldn't quite make sense of it. So I hope that at some point we can hear that feedback from probation. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one commenter online. It's a call-in user. Your number starts with 310, call-in user number 6. You'll need to dial *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please begin.
Hi, I believe that the reason that Campus Kilpatrick is so successful is not only because of the staff that work there. I also believe it's due to the incentives, the mentorship, that the LOPAP helps with the mentorship of the staff that they use, the programming when it is available. And the reason that juvenile hall is such in distress is because you have about 15 youth living in a unit with maybe 2 staff. When you ask a youth to brush their teeth or clean their room, you may get a little kickback. And then when you try to redirect them, they refuse. And now you have maybe 10 youth refusing and 5 maybe washing up or cleaning their room. So it leads to a confrontation. And it's really hard to mentor the youth in juvenile hall compared to Campus Kilpatrick. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I think that's the end of public comment, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Mundo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, do you have questions or further comments?
Just had a point to clarify. You were mentioning that the board used to ask probation to at least respond to it. And it seems like we have good recommendations. There should be a response. And so what does that look like for us to ask the board to do that again?
I certainly don't speak for the board, but I think the board shouldn't have to ask for them to do it again. I think they should respond to the recommendations based on the initial request. And I think you all and the POC staff team put a lot of effort into this. And I think as you heard the commenters say, this is an example of an inspection in which some of the pieces of it are glowing, very supportive, very positive, and it would be, I think, in good faith to have written responses to the recommendations or a presentation about how they're implementing the recommendations, similar to what Director Raley said about the plumbing, but with more detail. So that's certainly something that Chair Mundo and I can take back to the executive leadership team to ask for a direct response to this and the other inspection reports that we have already submitted. So thank you for bringing that up.
That's if Superintendent Raley doesn't do it before us.
Right.
Comments, anything else? Okay, Wendy, would you please facilitate the vote for us?
Thank you. So this is just a straightforward vote to approve the inspection report to finalize it. And then we will be compiling all of these reports at the end of the year to submit to the BSCC, but they're all public and available on our website. So we're just finalizing each individual report throughout the year rather than waiting to finalize them all as a bunch at the end of the year. So please vote yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Kokani?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Mundo. So with 4 votes in favor and 3 people being absent, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll move to agenda item 5 to discuss and take possible action on an update on progress the Los Angeles County Probation Department has made towards maintaining compliance with the California Board of State and Community Corrections. Chief Deputy Epps was to be here, but had to respond to other matters. And we have Superintendent Raley, who might provide some report on her behalf.
Thank you. Report regarding the results of the spot checks. We are pending a response from BSCC, so we should be able to provide that when we received it. And we have the comprehensive BSCC inspection scheduled for October of this year.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or concerns? Commissioner Kokani?
Can you, again, I know that these are potentially hard questions given that you're new. Can you share a little bit more about the spot checks? I know that, if I recall correctly, Barry J was out of compliance as it related to staffing. And maybe programming, if those were the 2 primary areas of focus related to the spot checks. Can you share a little bit about how often the BSCC has come, whether it was with notice, without notice? Do you have any of that information?
I can tell you, I would have to get details as far as that is related to, but I can tell you that the BSCC has both scheduled and unscheduled inspections, spot checks. So we have those ongoing. I only know about the scheduled inspections.
You haven't been here for any of the unannounced inspections? Is that what you're saying?
I would have to go and gather the information, certainly for all of the locations that BSCC goes to.
I'm just speaking about Barry J. That's the item I think that we're, at least, I mean, I know that Los Padrinos is on here too, but just as it relates to Barry J, do you have information on how often the BSCC has come to Barry J? Since April, I believe, is when the BSCC committed to making those, spot checks.
Since I've been there, they have been there multiple times, I would have to gather the details for exactly the number of times.
And those have been scheduled and unannounced, or those have all been scheduled since you've been there?
I believe they've been both. But
They've
I'd
been
have-
both?
I believe they've been both, but I would have to get the details to confirm that.
How long have you been at Barry J?
Since the middle of June.
Okay. And do you know what those spot checks have focused on?
I think they're in with the intention of the comprehensive coming up in October, but I would have to ask them, I would have to go back and look at any kind of information they had given us regarding any areas. I'm not aware of a particular area, more the comprehensive coming up.
Okay, because I get that you're new, but following the April BSCC meeting, the BSCC made it very clear that preceding the comprehensive inspections, they would continue to make focused, kind of targeted visits related to those issues that BSCC was out of compliance with. And if I recall correctly, I can look back in my notes, I believe it was programming and staffing. So I'm just trying to get a sense, right? There is an upcoming BSCC meeting in September, so it's helpful to know if, you've been providing documentation related to programming, if you've been providing documentation related to staffing, or can you share what your role has been in those visits from the BSCC?
So the BSCC inspects all kinds of different areas, and I would have to go and get the data regarding if there was a particular area. I wasn't aware that there was only one thing that they were focusing on. I think they were focusing on the comprehensive coming up in October.
Again, from what they shared in April, they were not focusing on the comprehensive inspection. It was just focused on those issues that Barry J had consistently been out of compliance with, that resulted in it being a facility unsuitable for the confinement of young people. And that was the purpose of those visits up and until the comprehensive inspection cycle began again. Do you have any information as it relates to Los Padrinos or no?
For Los Padrinos, I would have to go back to the department and get that information.
Can I just ask when you were, this is a public meeting, right? And the purpose of this meeting is for there to be transparency around what's happening in these facilities so that young people, their families, the community, probation employees, advocates, community-based organizations can understand, right? What is happening with this billion-dollar department, and for our young folks who are in probation's care, jurisdiction, control. So it's the purpose of this agenda item was a report on the results of the spot checks. And I understand that you're waiting a response from the BSCC, but presumably the department has some information on, again, how often the BSCC has come, what they've looked at, what information they've requested, what information you've provided.
So Commissioner Kakani, just for context, Superintendent Rayleigh was notified late yesterday
Okay.
that he would be sitting in for Ms. Epps.
So this is not even for,
But I do want to follow up on the question that you had because it's a little surprising to me. So there have been a few visits, and it just seems to me that the staff or your administrators somebody debriefed with them and should have shared some of the information with you. And I'm just kind of curious if that occurred.
So I think what well, first I want to make sure I understand. So the Barry J. Nydorf and Los Padrinos are two separate facilities, and
Yes.
so
Just with Barry J.
we're just talking about Barry J. Nydorf.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that BSCC has been there. I've met with BSCC at the facility. But as far as the topics that you're mentioning from April, I'm not aware that it was a specific thing that they were looking for. My conversations have been related to the comprehensive in October. So for more specific areas of focus, I would need to go back and ascertain that information.
Okay, it just seems surprising to me that a debriefing wouldn't have occurred immediately, and you would have actually been told, hey, they just came by and they were looking at this or looking at that. So So that just didn't occur because you're focusing on something else then?
Well, my impression is that they are working to prepare us for the comprehensive. So if there was a particular area prior to my arrival, I would need to go get the information on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Kokani, I'm sorry.
I don't really even know who this is directed at, and maybe it's like, I don't know if it's for POC staff, but I mean, there's no attachment related to this agenda item. There's not really a meaningful report back. And again, I'm not putting this on you, Director Raley. I understand that you were just notified last night. So obviously, as the director of Barry J, perhaps I'd expect you to have some more information about Barry J, but maybe not Los Padrinos. It's just frustrating for folks who are paying attention, for those of us who are here trying to facilitate this conversation. I don't know what it is that we can do, if there is something that we can do, but I mean, these facilities are in and out of compliance hundreds of days, literally the majority of the last year. These facilities have been out of compliance, unsuitable for the confinement of young people, which has really fallen in the laps of young people. And so when we don't have these updates, it's outrageous. And I know I say this every time, but I don't understand what, like, if there's something that we can do, I'd love to engage in that conversation with this time, because it doesn't sound like we're going to get much additional information.
Thank you. Commissioner Meredith?
Yeah, I just want to point out, Director Raleigh, welcome to the team. He's doing a little intense at times, but that is because the department, prior to this administration, has a extensive history going back 20 years I've been a commissioner of not providing information in a timely manner. Now you're kind of in the back end of this thing, getting questions that you were not prepared for, that Chief Epps would have probably done had you been able to be here. So I just want to say, I understand the position you're in. I just want you to understand our frustrations. For instance, I made a motion back several months ago for a contraband report to be every month on a certain specifications, and it is yet to arrive. So I think what you're hearing from us is just a frustration, and unfortunately, you're the sacrificial lamb today.
If I can address, I think we can provide the information once we receive reports from BSCC, but I don't know that we have, to my knowledge, we have not received that information yet. Anything that has occurred with BSCC has just been conversational.
So I guess I'm going to share this just so in the future when you do visit us and our panelists, we understand that there's going to be a report back, but we also understand that there was a visit. And we don't want the report back. We're just kind of curious, if I'm correct, Commissioner Kokani, what areas that they focus in, not what their findings were. Those will become official when you do get a report back. So understanding that, hopefully in the future, when they are visiting and have yet to report back, that we're able to get an understanding of which areas of compliance or non-compliance they were checking in on those unannounced and announced visits. I think that's a fair request. Commissioner Terry?
Is it possible to get that report and have it as an attachment that's added later, or are we not able to do that?
You mean the report from BSCC?
No, even just like, I think we were expecting the supporting documents for this item today. So anything on, for example, Commissioner Kokani's questions on what was checked, is it possible to get that in writing?
I just want to be clear that we generally put that link for supporting documents under there in the hopes that or expectation that we might receive a presentation. All I was expecting on this item, even potentially, was like a PowerPoint kind of a thing, no kind of official report. And then I think with Deputy Chief Epps not being able to attend, she didn't want to provide something she wouldn't be able to give context to. I don't want to speak for her about that, but I think that's, I will also say, she is the one who volunteered and wanted to be able to give this report and expressed disappointment and about not being able to be here today. So I say that not, and that's just a fact. So I do we certainly could request a report, but my understanding is the same as Director Raley's, that there isn't anything that has been provided to the department from the BSCC that is public or in writing or official as of yet.
Again, I'm not really asking for anything from the BSCC, but even just when the BSCC visited, what information was provided to the BSCC, what documentation was provided to the BSCC. I think any of that should be available and shared.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thank you. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for this item?
We do have some written public comment that are attached to the agenda already. And again, if you want to submit public comment, send an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. If we get it before 5 p.m., we will attach it to the official agenda, and we always share those with all the commissioners.
Sorry, can I, just
yeah.
a quick question? Is our 5 like sub 2, sub 3, or will those be separate, or is this all one
It's all
thing?
one.
So we have no information on maintaining consistent staffing at both facilities and no information on compliance with program schedules matching programs offered at LP.
I think there's a hope that we might reschedule this item for another meeting. I will say I learned that, so our next meeting is scheduled for September 12th. And I believe that is not going to be in conflict with the BSCC meeting. So I think we will be able to have a meeting on September 12th, at which time we could certainly invite, if you choose, the department to come back to discuss the item again. Thank you. Okay, so we have at least one public commenter in the room. If there's anybody else, you're welcome to stand up behind the podium. If you want to make comments online, use the little raise your hand function or dial *3 on your phone. You'll have 2 minutes, and we welcome your participation. You can begin.
So this item is about a BSCC, but just here, just for the past 15 minutes of conversation, it feels like I start to doubt the authority of this board, this commission. It seems like for the past, I think one of the Commissioner Meredith talked about, for the past 20 years has been problems. And then for the last meeting, including this meeting, I have heard numerous times on numerous commissioners, like, we want this report, we didn't have any. I want to ask you this question, and then, well, we don't know anything, we don't have an answer. It seems like this board, this commission is just for show, just put it out there to show the public, oh, okay, we have an oversight. But in reality, every question they ask, we don't know the answer. Every report they requested, we never received. So I just want to know, I feel this board is too much of a bureaucracy than action. And then this one, it feels like it makes me draw the comparison. I actually did a research paper on the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department when the Sheriff Oversight Commission continued to subpoena Sheriff Villanueva, and then they never comply. I feel the same story is happening in this board. Whatever commission is asking, they never get it. So I doubt the enforcement, I doubt the oversight, I doubt the legitimacy of this commission. I'm seeing all conversation, all discussion, no action.
Thank you. Do we have any comments online? Oh, sorry. We do. Okay, we're going to begin with John Doe. You will have 2 minutes once you begin.
New administration is clueless and is not.
I'm going to interrupt you. The very beginning of your comment got cut off. Can you please start again, and I'll start your time again?
Yes. As you can see, POC's new administration is clueless and is not taking BSCC seriously. BSCC has provided reports, so that is a lie. And this is the newly hired BSCC expert. It is all very clear now that the current administration does not want LP to pass BSCC. Their agenda has always been to get juvenile hall into conservatorship. This will allow them to override the MOU and fire people. Current admin knows probation staff can and will get the job done. So they pivoted and planned and executed their plan to sabotage LP into failing BSCC. Ms. Epps did not support the previous LP superintendent and did nothing to help LP. In their plan to find a reason to eliminate all bureau chiefs, they assigned all bureau chiefs to Los Perginos. When they familied up, worked together, and supported LP staff, they passed inspection, all to Epps and the chief's surprise. Of course, Epps took credit for passing and claimed her weekly meetings helped pass LPP. When she canceled more than half of her meetings and only stepped foot in LP twice for a brief moment each time. Chief Viero Rosa stood back and let all this happen. He allowed Epps to bring in San Bernardino's so-called experts, which are her friends. 12 out of the 15 are Black. What's worse is they have proven to be highly inexperienced in BSCC and are terrible, absent-minded, rude managers. Now, Epps is having probation supervisors train them in BSCC. This is apparent what they wanted, a team that will run the halls into conservatorship so they don't have to answer to the board.
Okay, our next commenter is Karina. Sorry if I didn't see the last name. Karina, we're going to unmute you. Karina, oh, sorry. Karina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, you can begin. Thank you. And actually, before you begin, welcome, Commissioner Lewis. We're so happy you're here. Can the minutes please reflect that Commissioner Lewis has joined us? Go ahead, Karina, you can start.
So I just have a couple of things to say. So I hear a lot of I don't knows, and we're just kind of going in circles in these meetings. So my question is, why are they allowed to lie to our faces? Like, why are we being lied to? It's obvious that they aren't truthful and they don't care to be. And they have no consequences. As adults, knowing their job, they should have consequences. They have, I mean, the thing is, how do you expect for them kids to do what they're supposed to do or listen to them when, you know, it's like they don't even follow their superiors' orders. They can't even provide reports to us, but they expect so much of them kids. And those are kids. So they're supposed to be leading by example. These are our kids, whether they committed the crime or not. These are our kids. They're still kids. They're youth. Yes, you know, they've gone through some stuff, whatever, but it's like, why are they being allowed to treat them this way or to keep continuing doing this to them? That's my thing. Why are they still in the position that they're in? Why do they still hold that position?
Thank you. We'll go next to call-in user number 16. Your number starts with 661. You need to dial *6 on your phone to unmute.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the commissioners. I have the same response. I'm kind of baffled and surprised that the directors are giving you a type of response when asked for reports. They don't have it, or they seem to appear to be oblivious to what you're asking for. And I myself, being involved with a nonprofit board, if this was a board meeting in the corporation and they asked directors for reports and their directors responded as such, they would just have zero tolerance for that. So I'm in line with many of the other community members who are just shocked that you ask for reports and you get nothing, and not even a clear explanation of why you don't receive anything. And once again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I think that's the end of our public comments.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, any further questions or comments? None? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to agenda item number 6. We will be discussing and taking possible action to approve the attached PLC report to the Board of Supervisors on the Probation Department's progress with ensuing ensuring that all facilities that hold youth are compliant with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, known as PREA, standards and training. The board's motion is attached to the agenda as referenced. At our last meeting in July, Probation Director Nathan Martinez gave a detailed presentation with highlights from the report back to the board, and he has joined, he didn't join us today. Sorry about that. But today, Executive Director Julian will give an overview of the PLC's response to the probation's report before we proceed with a vote about whether to accept the report and submit it to the Board of Supervisors. Wendy?
Thank you. You're going to hear me say the word PREA, which is an acronym. I don't actually like saying it, but it's a long acronym, so I'm going to say it because it stands for Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a hard thing to say, and it should be a hard thing to say. The issue of safety, sexual misconduct, sexual assault within the facilities is not new to the Probation Oversight Commission. It's something that commissioners have taken interest in since the very beginning of the commission and even before with the former Probation Commission. PREA is the law, and there are standards associated with it. But I hope that you'll see in our report that the Probation Oversight Commission, the commissioners at the last meeting have shared their comments more along the lines of providing a youth-centered approach to this work. And I think I would be remiss without framing the importance of this work with the opportunity that Commissioner Jackson and I have had over the last couple of years to talk to survivors of sexual assault and misconduct in the facilities. I say that before giving my report back and going through this sort of dry report because it's real. I think afterwards I'll tell you a little bit about why the recommendations themselves are in fact very directly related to some of the things that we've heard from survivors and that it's was reflected in what the commissioners brought up. So we're doing this because the board passed a motion. Supervisor Solis authored a motion about ensuring that the oversight bodies, including the Civilian Oversight Commission, the Office of Inspector General, and us, reviewed the PREA policies for compliance and then reported back on them. And I want to make sure that you know that the Office of Inspector General has published a detailed report with findings that reads very different from our report, but is, in my opinion, totally complementary. Their report is very legally focused around the specific compliance of the adherence between what probation's policy says and what the PREA requirements are. So I think it's a great complement to our report, which is more reflective of the commissioners' thoughts about it, knowing what they know about how things go in the facilities. I also want to talk a little bit about what the role of the Probation Oversight Commission is in terms of expertise. So there are lots of experts on the Probation Oversight Commission. There are folks with decades of experience in law enforcement and investigations. There are folks who are academic experts in every way. There are attorneys. There are folks who lead and run organizations that have been working also for decades to impact policy within the department. There are people who have lived inside these facilities. And so a lot of very direct, relevant experience. And our role is not to provide the legal response to this. Our role is, I think we learned early on from the BSCC what they asked us to do, which was literally to go into the facilities and inspect and ask ourselves the question, how would you feel if your child was incarcerated in this facility? We take that very seriously, and we write it not in an informal way. The reports are very formal, but really do try to think about what it's like to be a kid in this facility who might be a victim of sexual misconduct or sexual abuse. So with that framing, I'll go through the recommendations in the report. It's provided, the link to the draft is provided. And what we're doing today is asking the commission to approve our report back, which we will then send to the board. I will say, I don't want to steal Director Raley's comments, but that I have been pleased that probation has offered to come back to give another presentation to us to talk about how they are incorporating some of these suggestions into their policies. That was not part of what's required by the board motion, but I'm pleased that we'll continue going. So we have 4 recommendations in our report back. The first one, and I'm not going to read through them because you can read them yourselves, but I want to explain a little bit about what I think they mean. The first one is about the concerns about investigating ourselves. So there was a lot of discussion around the ability of the probation department to do investigations of themselves. That's comes from a long line of conversations and comments that many people have shared in oversight all over the country around police departments and law enforcement agencies and probation and jails and correction services about the need to have neutral and independent investigations. But I will say I've learned so much from the commissioners over the last 3.5 years, but Commissioner Meredith in particular has shared some things with me that I didn't think about before, which is that he has a career in law enforcement. And when you have a law enforcement agency that's full of investigators, when you staff your investigation teams, you're staffing them with people who have decades of investigation experience. But when you have an agency that doesn't have a staff that's full of investigators, you're staffing your investigation teams without that same level of expertise. So probation actually is in a differently situated situation than other law enforcement agencies may be in terms of doing their investigations. I will say I think the chief has clearly acknowledged this. There was a board motion recently about I don't want to misphrase it, but really taking a new look at internal affairs and outsourcing some of the internal affairs to do investigation. So Commissioner Meredith, I'd ask for you to please, when I'm finished, correct me if I've misstated your position, but it's certainly something that was meaningful to me in terms of thinking about why it's very important to have solidly trained investigators investigating these complaints. Secondly, the recommendation is about the standards and also about timing. So I think that there are some questions about what the standards actually are, about how young people are informed of their rights and what they can do if they find themselves in a situation where they are the victim of sexual misconduct by anyone in the facility. The best example of it that I think is reflected in the recommendation is that we've talked to so many people at Los Padrinos, for example, who have been in the facility for over a year. And I think there is a robust intake orientation about PREA. And also the PREA standards are on posters in the unit. But when you think about a boy or a young man who's been in that facility for over a year, orientation on a day when he may have come in very fearful and afraid about a new experience of coming into this juvenile hall, it's easy to understand how a lot of that orientation material might be forgotten. So the need to have constant updating of the young people about their what they can do and what they should do is crucial. Third is about, this is where I start to sound like a broken record, the effectiveness of policy and trainings. That's about the evaluation and understanding whether what we're doing as a department actually works and having measurements and outcomes and evaluations to show that. And also just a focus on the effectiveness of those trainings. And then the fourth one, I think, is the one that there was a lot of robust discussion about this at the last meeting and brought up a lot of questions for me as well, which is about the way that we center youth and their needs in these investigations and ensuring that they're fully protected by, for example, contacting their attorney or their parent as they're a part of these investigations. So those are the 4 recommendations. I encourage you to read our report, and we will be submitting those to the board. I just want to share a couple of, it's one story that I have heard multiple times from the survivors, which is why I think this is so important. And it is, I talked to, I've had very personal conversations with a few people, including some people who are my age, which is interesting to hear their reflections on things that happened many decades ago in the facilities. One of the things in particular is folks having come to a level of acceptance around their being survivors, with their anger focused not as much on the perpetrator of the harm as on the people that they confided in to tell. And that you're going to hear my voice shake, and I'm not going to apologize for it because this is it's terrible and it's sad. And it is that they found themselves in a position with the strength to confide in someone, another adult, someone that they thought was a trusted adult, about having been the victim of sexual misconduct. And that adult encouraged them not to report it or didn't report it. That is why PREA is important. It's why the Prison Rape Elimination Act is important. It's why ensuring that we are doing the absolute best and not just meeting minimum standards is important, so that we can actually protect our young people, not just from people who would be willing to commit a predatory act against a child, but for people who wouldn't be able to stand up for a child who's come to them for help. So I thank the board for entrusting us with this important work. As I said in the report back, we're not going to stop looking into this now. It certainly will be an issue that we continue to look into for the rest of the lifetime of the Probation Oversight Commission. And I look forward to your questions or comments.
Commissioners, wow. Commissioner Meredith.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out that having family and friends that have been incarcerated or incarcerated, as well as talking to many victim of a sex crime, I understand the emotions and drama that goes through that. So when I took the PREA class, and yes, I took the PREA class from Nathan, we talked about the follow-up, and it's nothing against the department, because the department's got a lot of outstanding men and women working for it. It's that expertise, specialized expertise. State law mandates that police officers investigating sex crimes have to have specific training. So when I was talking to Nathan, we talked about the fact that the sheriffs have the special victims unit. And since we are all county facilities, the sheriffs would have jurisdiction there. That maybe in the policy we should look at when we have one of these, bringing SVU in from the sheriffs to do the investigations on the criminal side. So, but yeah, I was impressed with Nathan's training and the direction that the department's going in.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Commissioner Kokani.
Thank you. I know this is a draft, and the report back is due, is it September 14th? 11th. Okay, so that's before our next Probation Oversight Commission meeting. How will this be presented to the board? I know reports are oftentimes just submitted. Will it be presented at a public safety cluster? I'm just curious, like, what the engagement with the board will be, so that some of these recommendations can be monitored.
Sure.
Enforced. I mean,
That's a great
probation
question.
can, take this as they will, maybe implement it, maybe not implement it, but just, yeah, curious how that might play out.
So quite literally, if you approve it today, I will send it in this format, take the draft watermark off it in an email directly from me to the supervisors. We will also submit it to the, I'm looking at Janae to give me the words, like the board database where the board report backs go. It's also obviously posted on our public agenda, but presenting at public safety cluster is a great idea. I think that Supervisor Solis, her office has expressed interest in obviously continual follow-up on this. And it's not just Supervisor Solis. All of the supervisors are, of course, interested in this. But I would ask for your direction. I mean, I think you've given me one perfect example, which is bringing it up in public safety cluster. I will absolutely do that. But if there are other places where you think we could share it, then we will. I will say Ismail, our communications manager, has been thinking very significantly and working directly with the rest of the staff about how we lift up the recommendations from all of these reports in terms of sharing them out in our social media, but also getting them to the target audiences so that we can ensure that folks are looking at and reading our recommendations, mostly so that hopefully the department will incorporate them and so that we can prevent harm going forward.
Thanks.
If I can add something. So the department is following up on the concerns that were expressed and would like the opportunity to report back in 60 days.
Report back to the POC.
POC.
Okay, great.
Wow, you just stole my thunder. That was going to be my recommendation. Any other commissioner questions or concerns? Commissioner Terry?
Quick question. Does it have to be 60 days? It can't be 30 days? 60 days feels like a long time, possibly, to follow up on the recommendations given the severity of the topic. Just wondering.
60 days is the date that I was given. I can
Okay.
follow up on the request.
Perfect. Okay, so seeing no other concerns or questions, do we have any written or live public comments for item? Wendy?
We haven't received any written public comment, right, Janae? So if there are folks who would like to make public comment in the room, please stand up and go to the podium. If there are folks who'd like to make public comment on the line, you have to be on WebEx and use the little raise your hand function, or if you're on your phone, dial *6. So I will start the timer and you can begin.
The interesting Prison Rape Elimination Act sounds really good, but it reminds me with another law. I think 2 or 3 years ago, there's a law that if a police officer witnessed misconduct of his or her superior, by law, he is required to report. But right now, in any police department, can anyone give me an example that which officer reported her captain, her chief, her lieutenant for misconduct? So this law, by nature, is a good intention, but I already know it will never work. In the youth facility, I don't know what is look like to like kind of youth facility. Is that like 10 people, 10 youth in one room, or is that like 1 person per cell? Because I don't know that. So if you have like 10 person per room, I can tell you right now, give it up. You never stop it. You never stop the rape. But if it's like 1 person per cell, and then second of all, I don't know what is the staff member versus incarcerated youth ratio. So is that, for example, if we have like 100, 200 incarcerated youth per 1 staff member ratio, and I can tell you right now, you can never stop the rape. I really wish I can make more comments about that, but because of the limited information, I don't see anything right there. So it's really limited knowledge I can do. But what I know is, compared to other countries, I came from a country that has more than 4 times of your population, and I also come from a country that has more than 10% of less than 10% of the rape victims. There must be something that you can learn from another country. There must be something you can learn from another culture. Something that you can learn.
Thank you. That's your time. There are actually a couple of things you mentioned there that I'll clarify after we finish public comment. Thank you. No online public comment. Okay, great. I will say, in addition to what you noted, and thank you for bringing this up, about any kind of obligations for reporting general criminal activity within the facilities, there is an additional layer, which is mandatory reporting. So it is also a crime as a mandated reporter not to file a mandated report. So that's something that applies specifically to young people. So I appreciate that. And then maybe Director Raley, if you want to talk about some of the diversity, I'm happy to actually also answer that question about the diversity of the facilities and how that works.
Yeah, they're all very different.
Yes. Yeah, so some of the facilities, the camps in particular, have dormitories where you have the rated capacity is up to 100, but the average capacity over the last couple of years has been between 20 and 30. But those young people stay in a dormitory setting. And then there are facilities, including the juvenile hall, where youth are in individual rooms. Some of those rooms are what's called wet rooms, which means they have a sink and a toilet in the room. Some of them are dry rooms, which means they have to go out to a congregate dormitory style bathroom, but there's a wide variation. And there's also a variation in the staff to youth ratios, depending on the facilities. So you heard the report about Campus Kilpatrick, where you have a very, can you tell I'm not a math major? Low staff to youth ratio, lots of staff compared to fewer youth. And then Los Padrinos, where you have many more youth compared to the number of staff. But there is actually a required legal ratio under PREA that requires a minimum standard around the staffing. So thank you for those questions. And with that, I'll send it back to Chair Mundo.
And I was remiss in that I did not ask for a motion to approve the PLC's PREA report back as presented. I will motion for that and would request for a second.
Motion for the approval of the POC's report back on the Prison Rape Elimination Act. I don't know if I got all the words in, but motion for it to be approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Kokani. Commissioners, do we have any further questions or comments? So I would like to make one comment in response to the public statement. I know for a fact in my 30 years as a probation officer and a supervisor that I witnessed occasions when it was correctly reported. We get the news of those that go wrong, and we never really hear about the times it goes right. And I had to personally report something. I had no problem doing it. And there are a lot of probation officers, supervisors, and directors that will report immediately. And it's unfortunate that there are those who, for some reason, don't. It's not always that they're bad people. Is that sometimes there's a fear factor of retaliation or something else that holds them from it. But I know that for the most part, probation staff, probation employees are there and ready to report back. So that's just my 2 cents. Wendy, please facilitate a vote for us.
I think that because, and this was my mistake, we didn't do that. I do need to call for public comment again on the motion. So if there's anyone who wants to make public comment specifically on the motion to approve the report, we will do that. You can raise your hand on WebEx or stand up in the room. Okay, great. Seeing none, thank you for obliging. We're voting to approve the finalization of this PREA report back, which will be submitted to the Board of Supervisors. And thank you, Commissioner Kokani, for your suggestions about other ways to get the message out. Commissioner Kokani? Commissioner Lewis? Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Aye.
Commissioner Mundo? So with 2 members being absent, with a vote of 5-0, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. If there are no more questions or comments, we will move to a short break before we proceed to the next agenda item. Any objections? We will take a 10-minute break and resume promptly at 10:45. Please note that we will be discussing agenda item 7 when we return.
Yeah, or spark thing, there's an environment. Not by any means, I looked at it, they used it in Washington, D.C., they used it in a number of different jurisdictions.
I guess we're concerned.
Okay, commissioners, we are going to be resuming our meeting. Thank you all for giving us a break and returning. Agenda item 7 is where we will discuss and take possible action to approve the attached POC report on efforts to increase programming focused on substance abuse, substance use disorder treatment, and harm prevention efforts, including Narcan in probation's juvenile facilities. POC Project Director, Dr. Sarah Gongora, is here to report on this agenda item. Please proceed.
Great. Okay. Hello again, everybody. I want to just start by thanking our commissioners for asking the staff of the POC to do this work of looking closely at the substance abuse programming and harm prevention strategies available in probation's facilities. I also want to specifically thank Commissioners Terry, Commissioner Canales, and Commissioner Meredith, and also my colleagues at Office of Inspector General and Office of Child Protection who joined in to support this work. It's a privilege to get to do this work alongside all of you and to bring this information to the public. So this was a project that required a whole lot of flexibility and went through quite a bit of evolution as we went about it. When we set out to start the work, I worked with Commissioner Terry to put together a plan, and we made a set of standardized survey forms, which you can see attached to the report on the agenda and coming soon to our website. We shared those survey forms in advance with multiple stakeholders, including probation, public defender, and various others, and we got approval to move forward. So from there, we started identifying substance abuse programs on the calendars at the facilities. We started going to the facilities, always in pairs, to conduct the survey, and that included making observations of the programs and conducting standardized interviews with youth providers and probation officers, because we really wanted to understand folks' experiences with those programs. I thought we'd end up writing recommendations strictly about the programs, but we actually needed to take a more simplified and concrete approach to the recommendations, really after finding that so many of the scheduled programming just wasn't occurring. So while I would have loved to be able to focus this report on like best practices and fine-tuning approaches to substance abuse programming, there's really a need to meet probation where they're at, which is at the basics of addressing logistical concerns to bringing programming in and emergency preparedness issues. So the attempted surveys that we tried to do for this project took place between January and May 2024 at Los Padrinos, Barry J. Nydorf, and Dorothy Kirby Center. Those are the most populated 3 facilities. And just to focus these findings further, we only made one visit to the Dorothy Kirby Center where we successfully observed the programming. It happened on time and without incident. So I just want to be really clear that the findings that I'm going to be talking about today are really about Los Padrinos and Barry J. And anytime it's about DKC, I'll mention them by name. So as we started to show up to the facilities and do the survey, we found time and time again that scheduled substance abuse programming just wasn't happening. At Los Padrinos, all of the scheduled substance abuse programs were being put on by DMH according to the calendar. And at Barry J, there was a mix of how it was provided. So some was provided by DMH, Department of Mental Health, DMH, and also by a contracted provider through the Department of Public Health, Substance Abuse Prevention and Control. That's DPH-SAPC. Their contracted provider is Tarzana Treatment Center. We made 13 attempts to conduct the survey and 6 were successful, which includes the one at DKC that I mentioned. To break it down further, we tried to observe 6 at Barry J and we got 2 of those. And we tried to observe 6 at LP and we got 3. Between the 3 facilities, 9 of those attempted observations were identified as DMH facilitated programs and just 4 of those 9 occurred. So instead of talking about what we didn't see, let's talk a little bit about what we did see when we made the observations. Most notably, we noticed that substance abuse programs that occurred at Barry J and Los Padrinos were conducted in really challenging conditions. And that included in day rooms within earshot of probation officers, within earshot of other young people, They were conducted in competition with one or more televisions. They were in competition with telephone calls. They were conducted in teeny tiny little hallways where a limited number of youth fit comfortably. And I'm talking like a really limited number, like 4 people could fit comfortably there. We saw non-emergency related interruptions at times from probation officers. The groups typically were made up of small numbers of participants, like 3 to 5 youth in units housing more than a dozen young people. We saw 2 groups that had probation officer support, like we saw probation officers actively encouraging young people to join the group or asking others to turn down televisions, but the others, we did not observe that. Each group had about a range of like 1 to 3 young people that were really actively trying to participate, and then we had some that were more quiet. At 4 of the 6 observations, we noticed that the program lasted for 30 to 35 minutes of the scheduled hour. Interviews that were conducted for the survey were such a mix that if you take a look at the report, you'll notice that we wrote about that in a vignette style, because I really wanted to capture the individual experiences of the youth and how they express their personal needs for programming. 3 of the young people that we interviewed shared their willingness to participate, all stemmed from having a pre-existing relationship with the provider, like they were their individual therapist or substance abuse counselor. Other youth that we interviewed, including those who chose not to participate, were less enthusiastic for a variety of reasons, including sharing that they found the programming really difficult to connect to. And there was a variety of reasons for that. Some youth did not like being read to off of a paper for a program. Some youth said that they found that the sharing in the program was like a one-way street, and that didn't work for them, to make themselves very vulnerable and feel like they received very little back. Some youth also reported language accessibility issues, including the formality of language used by providers, or that services were not often provided in their native language or in Spanish, which is what they preferred. So this information also lined up closely with what many probation officers shared with us were key barriers to bringing more young people into those services. So while we visited the facilities to do the survey, we also asked young people and probation officers about their access to naloxone, which Chair Mundo mentioned. It's also called Narcan, which is a medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. We were continuously informed that youth in the facilities do not have access to Narcan, though I will mention, and it is referenced in the report, that there is a board motion calling for youth to have access to Narcan. Visits to all 3 facilities showed that about half of the probation officers that we asked had Narcan on their person, but 100% of officers knew where they could access Narcan, which was generally in a locked office or in a locked cabinet in the living units. We found that probation did provide some substance abuse education opportunities to young people at the facilities. Specifically at Barry J and DKC, there were some extensive education opportunities. So given all of this information, the recommendations in the report, again, they're pretty concrete and clear. We included recommendations such as having all officers interacting with youth carry Narcan on their person, and having staff provided annual training, and having all youth receive education on opioid intoxication and making Narcan available to them. These are really basic, but they are also really critical because, as we know, in an emergency, seconds do matter. We also recommend that probation provide varied opportunities for young people to participate in substance abuse prevention programming. I think the truth is that traditional therapeutic approaches just aren't going to work for everyone. So some people will need approaches that they find more relatable, and that may include credible messengers, that can include providers with specialization in recovery and harm prevention, or even other approaches that emphasize like a mind-body connection. We also recommend that probation must regularly audit their calendars and work with their partners to remove any placeholders from the schedule. And I really just do want to lift up Barry J here. Leadership at Barry J was incredibly receptive and action-oriented whenever we were in the facilities, and we provided some feedback about what we were viewing. And Since then, well, during even the observations, we noticed remarkable changes and improvements at that facility with the tightening up and accuracy of the calendar. And the final recommendation, that probation leadership should set clear expectations and examples of attitudes and behaviors that support programming in the units. So we sent this report to probation well ahead of this presentation. Well, actually, it was kind of a tight timeline. And we didn't receive feedback, including any challenges or disagreement to anything that I've described here today. But after completing this work and the report, I was still left with a number of lingering questions that I would like posed to the department. And that includes, what is the department's actual position and approach to working with people who use or abuse substances? And is this position aligned with what happens in practice? And with no answer to either of those as I went through in writing this report, I also would like to specifically know, where does the department stand in aligning itself with research, experts, and other county departments in adopting a medical model approach to working with young people who use substances? So the report will be up on our website. I encourage everybody to take a look, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, concerns? Commissioner Lewis.
Good morning, and thank you for the report out. I will say this, beginning July, probation, DMH, and a number of organizations that provide contractors, trying to be impartial here and not seem like I'm on one side or the other, have teamed up consistently on Wednesday mornings, where DMH, the contractors, and probation run drug treatment programs, Seeking Safety, Think of a Change, every single week. They turn off all the TVs simultaneously in every unit. Turn off all the TVs, all of the phones are turned off, and all of the young people participate. And this is something that I'm aware of because of who I am. What's interesting is initially you had some pushback from some of the young people, and more have now began to participate, and partly because they're using the contractors that have better relationships than DMH and speak the cultural, whatever we want to label it as. I guess mainstream America will call it ebonics or slang or whatever we want. But the young people relate better to some of the contractors. And so now you're getting more and more, a more integrated model of providing substance abuse programming for young people. That's every Wednesday. And so I'm saying every Wednesday, we'd love for you to just pop up, because I get a live report on what happens on Wednesday. So this happened yesterday, and I get a live report at the end of the day of what happened, how many people participated, et cetera. So I'll say that the response to what was needed in this instance, you can see some of the changes that have been made almost instantaneously, which is good. Still a work in progress, though.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis, for bringing that up, Sarah. And I actually were talking a little bit about this yesterday, about the fact that this report, the visits were wrapped up in the end of May. Is that right?
Beginning of May.
Beginning of May. And I have also witnessed what you're talking about, both in terms of the efficacy of credible messengers being trained and offering some of the programming, and how that helps to encourage youth to participate, which is one of the specific things that's called out in the report. I think it's great, is the word I will choose, that they're doing this multidisciplinary meeting on Wednesdays. I will say that is in fact a replication of the work that happens at Campus Kilpatrick. Maybe they aren't saying it, but that happens at Campus Kilpatrick, and it's great news that it's being replicated. The other thing that I witnessed the last time that I was at Los Padrinos with Chair Mundo is I saw on 2 different units two different women come into the facility, and in one unit, the rapport with the young men, it was one of the units with older young men, was immediate, and it was very clear how excited they were to see her. And I asked the boys who she was, and they said, "She's the drug lady. We love her." And, she is in fact SAPSI, a substance abuse prevention and control provider. I think the other woman was one of the contractors. So those incidents all happened after this report was completed. So I would agree with you that there has been some direct improvements at the facilities in terms of what you're explaining and more. So we're very pleased to see that and hoping there will be continued feedback from the department about how they are protecting kids and addressing root issues. So thank you for bringing that up.
Further questions? Commissioner Kokani?
Which facilities was that happening at? The Wednesday meetings? Barry J. Okay. I'm just trying to get some more. First of all, this report, thank you so much for the folks who contributed to it. It's really a tragic and hard read. In light of Brian's passing last May, I think oftentimes what we hear about is the, prevention of contraband coming into the facilities, barbed wire, safety and security specialists, $4 million budgets to have people patrol the facility outside, airport scanners, things of that nature, and not that same level of investment on actually treating the issue and caring for young people who are struggling with drug use, substance use. So it's just really unfortunate. But curious if you have any information, Dr. Gongora, on why either SAPSI or DMH wasn't able to provide programming on the 7 out of 13 visits that you conducted.
We had some conversations about that with a number of folks. And I will say that every time that we visited a facility and something wasn't happening, I would give immediate feedback to the superintendent, whether it was before I left the facility that day or in a follow-up email. And sometimes there was some disagreement because for some of the programming that didn't happen, we also reached out to Department of Mental Health, and there was some general disagreement. I think that there's the idea that the calendar is not accurate. So some of what DMH's feedback is that they were not scheduled from their knowledge to provide something, but it was on the calendar. And then we would speak to probation and they would say, no, that's supposed to be happening and it's not happening. So we really didn't get a completely clear answer on that all the time. At Barry J, which again, before the project wrapped up, we did see a lot of significant improvement on that calendar. Probation officers and youth told us it was widely known that those DMH programs were placeholders. And so those have been removed from the calendar from my observation over the last few months. And then for the instances of Tarzana, specifically for those, they had cancellations. People called out. And so then the program was canceled. But the issue that we saw with even that, like somebody in the front knew, but the staff didn't know, the unit didn't seem to know that the scheduled programming wasn't going to occur. And so when we tried to make the observations, we would like show up early, we'd wait around for somebody to show, we'd stick around, maybe see the rest of the facility and come back and see if something had happened. And so with the unit not knowing, it doesn't allow, I think it causes problems for the officers to like try to have a day, try to like schedule anything or run a program with the young people, or then fill in other programming. So I would say those two issues, just communication around the schedule, possibly no-shows, possibly call-outs.
It's unfortunate, and especially since we know that the issue of calendars not aligning with what's actually happening is actually being, again, investigated by the BSCC or further followed up on. So it's unfortunate that that is a trend. Fingers crossed that we can remedy that and move through that. I had one other question. Oh, I read in the report that, or two questions. I read in the rule, like issues and treatment around substance use, more just like a, how are you feeling? How do you make better choices? Is that correct?
I can speak to that a little bit. So I just want to say that there were two primary listings on the calendars for these sorts of programs, and one was listed specifically like substance abuse. And then Seeking Safety is an evidence-based program where there are aspects, like substance abuse is a major component of Seeking Safety, but Seeking Safety is also very much focused on the effects of having a post-traumatic stress disorder. And so in the observations that were Seeking Safety, substance abuse generally wasn't addressed, or it was addressed in a very fleeting way. Or a very formal way, and the programming itself was very focused on like feelings, or like a feelings worksheet, or identifying trauma.
So would you say that Seeking Safety is really a supplement to substance use?
I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think it probably could depend on the way that the conversation goes and, you know, the specific curriculum. I'm not familiar with all of the, you know, week by week curriculum or how that goes exactly in Seeking Safety. But from some of the interviews we did with the providers, it was shared like, if youth bring it up, we'll talk about stuff. So, but that's not what we observed. But I think it potentially could be very substance abuse focused.
Thanks. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Lewis?
So Seeking Safety is one of the curriculums that is evidence-based, and a number of the, I'm gonna say it, get in trouble, Sam, credible messengers brought into the facilities because it does address substance abuse. But as you start off in a group, you don't just jump into it. How are you feeling this morning on a scale of 1 to 10? And if a kid says he's a 1, that's great. If another kid says I'm doing horrible, you have to go into that, because there's so many different aspects of what causes a person to use substance, whether it's alcohol, drugs. Seeking Safety is dialectical behavioral therapy. So it's thinking, how to correctly think, assess why you're feeling a certain way, but it also has components, strong components, to address the need or the belief for need to get, in the groups we say get high. Okay, so we're using all these technical terms, substance abuse, the need to get high. Why? What is the trauma that you've gone through? Like, and this is like a fast-paced one. What is the trauma that you went through that makes you feel the need to get high? If you think about it, over a 16-week period, you're addressing that entire question week by week by week, pieces of it. And so Seeking Safety, thinking for change, these are pieces that are definitely substance abuse, but they're a part, as a person develops, the brain science clearly shows that these young people that we're dealing with are not at 26 yet. So their frontal lobe is not fully developed. We all understand that. Seeking Safety begins to give you the tools. As adults, if you're in therapy, I have a therapist, and for my therapist, if you're listening, you're number one. They give us tools to be able to deal with whatever we've gone through. I've been shot, stabbed, and all those are all traumatic events. Now imagine a young person that has none of these tools to be able to navigate seeing their best friend shot down in the street, or seeing mom or dad overdose in the house and then find them. Like, these are all traumatic events that children shouldn't have to go through. They don't know how to address them. And oftentimes, if you put them in a clinical setting with a therapist, they clam down, they shut down, and they give you, does anybody remember the shoulder hunch? Seeking Safety is a curriculum that you utilize with people that have lived experience and those therapists to navigate trauma and the need or the belief for need for substance use or to get high. Because ultimately, when you're getting high or getting drunk or doing those things, what are you doing? You're trying to make the pain that you feel inside go away. How do I address that without getting high? Because when I wake up from my stupor, it's still there. And it teaches you those things like mindful meditation. A lot of people don't realize, but that's in there, like mindful meditation. If you see some of the young people when they do they start off as funny because you're closing your eyes and you're peeking at each other. Like there's a whole pathway to get kids to think, young people to think differently. The best way that I could explain it, or that I would recommend for anybody if you don't understand it, is to go through the curriculum. I will bring you curriculum. I have a box full of the books that we ordered, and it's important to have people who have been through this guide young people that have been through this that don't know how, that they're actually being given tools to deal with the trauma that they've suffered that causes them, and it's not just trauma, because there are other reasons for people that people use drug and alcohol. But it gives you tools to be able to navigate those things. Last piece I say is this. Right now, there are studies where they're actually beginning to go into the brain. Has anybody heard about the studies that they're doing? They've actually have some, I forget the part of the brain they go in. They start off cutting the skull open and going in to be able to stop people from using drugs or alcohol. But now they're beginning to use a focus, I forget what it's called, but it's a focused way of being able to use, what is the scanner that you go through?
Right.
MRI, like they're literally using this. It was on 60 Minutes, and then I started reading, I went down the rabbit hole. But there are studies that are showing people that are that have been like 30 years of addicts. And now all of a sudden, because they've gone through this new treatment method, they're no longer addicts. But these are different things. But just being apprised and aware of the curriculums that are being utilized. And when we say evidence-based, why is it evidence-based? And understanding the reason why. Ultimately, if we continue to pour in the resources in the right people, young people will connect to these programs, receive the tools that they need, and instead of feeling like they need to get high, I need to talk to my therapist, or they'll begin to go through let me meditate, let me take a step back, let me use the tools that adults use that help them navigate stressful situations and rebound without using drugs and alcohol. You can also, by the way, you can also pull up the Seeking Safety and Thinking for Change in the summaries on Google. It's a great evidence-based program that's working. When we talked about earlier, Campus Kilpatrick and the transformation of Barry J., if you take a minute, would love for everybody read about New Beginnings. New Beginnings also uses this, but it's literally what Kilpatrick is modeled after also. So New Beginnings in DC. And I say it one more time. Can we get a funder to pay for all of the leadership in probation, the Probation Oversight Commission, and everybody else to go to New Beginnings to go look at what an integrated campus looks like so we can transform our facilities to look like those campuses?
Commissioners? Commissioner Terry?
This is a question for probation. I don't know, Superintendent, I know you're not here to speak to this, but if you're able to shed light on the issues around space, noise, privacy, just seems to be so present, because even in the best program, like what was described, if you don't have like a quiet space to actually, hear what's being taught or to teach, then I think it harms the outcomes. Are you able to share like what would need to happen, for example, to secure private space for substance abuse counseling to take place, whether it's not even necessarily a one-on-one, but even if it's a provider coming in, like what would need to happen to just have a quiet space for that program?
Thank you for the question. I think that the challenge there is the different layouts of each facility. So as Mr. Lewis was pointing out, or I think it was Mr. Lewis, they turn the TVs off, they turn everything off, right, in the unit and at Barry J. And they were able to do that at that location. So at Kilpatrick, they might have a different approach, right? They might actually go over to one of the vacant other cottages that's not currently being used. So each facility would have to be a facility-specific action to ensure that based off of what layout and what capability they each had.
So it's possible, it's just identifying a space? Sounds like.
I would have to go in, I would say, I only say it's possible at every single location. I would have to go to each location to confirm, but certainly Barry J, as Mr. Lewis was saying, was able to do that. So it'd be a matter of figuring that part out.
Seeing no further questions or comments, can someone make a motion to approve the PLC PREA report back as presented?
I motion to approve the report back as presented.
Commissioner Terry, and second? Commissioner Kakani. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for item number 7?
I believe we have not received any written public comments. We have some folks in the room who will be making live public comments. If you're online, you need to be on WebEx to be able to comment. You can get there by clicking the link on our agenda. If you want to give a public comment, click on the little raise your hand feature. It's a tiny hand at the bottom of the screen, or if you're on your phone, dial *3. You'll have 2 minutes, and we'll begin with in the room comments.
I feel that we are focusing on this Narcan item. You guys are focusing on the last thing in this whole domino effect chain instead of talking about the beginning of the domino effect. What's the reason why we need Narcan? The reason is because there are so many drug deaths in the facility. Now, what's the reason there are so many drugs in the facility? It's because the drug are so easily available on the street. I come here on the bus, I don't have a car, and then 1 hour ago, there's somebody selling drugs on the bus. When you have a George Gascon are talking about selling drugs to a high school kids is a book and a release. When you have no punishment about selling drug, making drug, trafficking drug, when you have a system that is promoting the drug to appear on the street, on the facility. That's the reason why drug end up in the facility. That's the reason why you need a Narcan to save people. Now, if we do not attack the roots, which is the drug issue from the beginning, then I will tell you, 1 million, 2 million Narcan will never save your kids because there are continuously drugs coming into the street, coming into the facility, and then you're going to continue to use Narcan and Narcan, waste of money, waste of taxpayers' money. So instead of doing this Narcan, if we can work with the sheriff department, the California, the state, local, federal law enforcement, if we can make sure there's punishment, there's consequence of selling, making, transporting drug on the street, then probably we can eliminate the drug from going into our facility. Therefore, there's no need for Narcan if there's no drug in the facility.
Reset the timer. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Hi, good morning. Helen Eigenberg. I'm part of Hangout Do Good, and I'm just here really speaking as a civilian. What's striking me this morning in listening is, do we have the right people talking to youth? I teach sex ed in the high schools and middle schools of the LAUSD. I've been doing it for 20 years. And I know what's effective in talking to kids and I know what's not. And in just listening to all of this, whether we're talking to them about getting high or we're talking to them about sex ed or we're talking to them about sexual assault, if it's not the right people, it's not going to, you're not. Kids are amazing. They have a huge BS detector. If it's not a credible messenger who's got lived experience, if it's not someone like the drug lady, there's a reason that she walked out and they're like, that's the drug lady. And so I just really, it's really making me just think, when we do programming, do we have the right people talking to youth? Because if we don't, then what is the point? So thanks.
Thanks, Helen.
Hello, my name is Isabella Solomon, and I'm with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I'd like to start off by saying thank you for this opportunity to speak and welcome to the new member for probation in LA County. I'd like to use this opportunity to add the importance of having a person you can trust for all situations that have been mentioned so far. If you have contractors going inside whom the young people can relate, connect to, and trust, I believe we can take a step forward in the solution finding process. I have seen firsthand the progress and change that these youth make when around a trustworthy, accountable, and trusting adult is around them. I have also seen the results of having facilitators or staff they cannot trust and don't feel comfortable with. If you want to find solutions to these problems that the department has been facing for decades, you can start off by allowing the youth a bridge to start their pathways to healing, which for me means access for the credible messengers. I personally believe that the credible messengers can help, or not just the credible messengers, but having people they can trust can help with the substance abuse, even the previous agenda item. It's just having someone you can trust, having someone that you know is going to hear you and try to help you out, instead of like somebody mentioned, somebody that's just going to dismiss you or pass you along to the next person. And like the previous person stated too, if you're having the right people teaching these classes, you're going to get the results that I'm sure we all want. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello. Start by agreeing with this gentleman right here. We did have some accountability of how the drugs are getting in. Then I believe it will start slowing down as well. I know LP just had somebody throw something over the wall, I believe a few days ago, and people who threw it over actually got caught. But they'll be back on the street within, probably already back on the street. So there's no accountability for what's going on. It's going to be a little hard to keep the drugs out of the system. Also, when it comes to, we keep saying credible messengers, credible messengers. You do realize that these officers who work with these kids are also credible messengers. These officers that work with these kids come from the same streets, the same neighborhoods. All we did was fill out an application. So I don't know what makes us different from somebody who put on a shirt and says that has credible messages on the back, or somebody with a badge on their chest, if they come from the same area. And we go to accountability again, and I know Mr. Lewis ain't gonna like this, but we got to check some of these credible messengers because they may be bringing it in as well. It's just facts. I know we had an issue with that last time, but last time I brought it up, I got a gang of phone calls from people from Barry J, people from LP, saying, hey, I got proof. Hey, this happened on this day. Hey, this happened on that day. And I'm like, why ain't this coming up? But who knows? But we also got to check. We got to get accountability for that. So we just can't let credible messengers just waltz on in. We have to do back checks as well. And like the gentleman said, accountability. That's the main way you keep drugs out.
Thanks, Thomas. We'll go to our online commenters now. Just one, sorry. Who is it? Karina, we're going to unmute you. Karina, oh yeah, okay, you can begin.
Right, so I just have a quick comment. Credible messengers not take anything into LP because messengers not go to LP.
Karina, we're having a lot of trouble hearing you. It seems like it's breaking up. I can restart your time if there's anything you can do to adjust that.
Okay, is this better?
Oh, so much better. Yes. Well, please restart your comment.
Okay, so my comment was just to what the gentleman just said. LP doesn't have credible messengers, so that can't happen. The process to even walk into LP is so ridiculous that they make us parents take off our scrunchies from our hair, pull our hair down, take off our shoes, take off our sweaters inside out, pull our pants up. and they, it's ridiculous. Like they even come to us with to the bathroom. That's how ridiculous it is. And they still, they're not paying attention to how it's getting there, which is being thrown or whatever. But, the fact of the matter is there is a difference with credible messengers and staff. There's wonderful staff, and I'm going to say that there's a lot of them that get, just overshadowed because of the bad ones. But you can't compare, the people that have been to jail and have done 25 years and are giving back to their community to one that's carrying a badge. Yes, you guys might have the same intent. Maybe at heart, you guys have the same intentions, but you cannot compare one to the other. It's a whole different story.
Thank you, Karina. Is that the end of our public comment? I will say there are contractors through the Department of Youth Development providing credible messenger services now at Los Padrinos. It took a very long time for that to happen, but there are contractors providing those services. So I've seen them in action, actually. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners? Questions, concerns?
Now as good as time as any.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yeah, so drugs. We had a war on drugs. Put a bunch of people in prison. It's poverty. Why don't we ever have a drug? We have a war on drugs, war on crime. We lock people up, mainly black and brown people. We've never had a war on poverty. Why? Why don't we try to lift people up instead of locking them up? I've been here a little over 2 years, and I think it's time for me to now resign this position because I just don't like the point. I'm solution-based. That's how I work. I haven't heard you talk about the credible messengers that have showed up at multiple probation outreaches. The most recent was day before yesterday in Pasadena to work side by side with you. And I asked for this. Let's work as a team. We're all stakeholders. These are our children. It may not be our biological children, but they're children of the County of Los Angeles that have done bad things, but that does not make them bad people. What makes credible messengers different? It's the fact that we went through hell first. I was at Los Padrinos many years ago, and I remember having to have some fights and getting locked up, and then later I ended up in prison. And now here I sit, home 13 years, doing nothing but trying to make our communities better. For me, I'd rather use my time, which is the most valuable asset I have, to find solutions. And I thought this was the platform I could do it on, but the pointing fingers back and forth just doesn't help. The report, for instance, I'll show you something helpful. This POC put out a report. Barry J got a chance to read it, and they adjusted, and they changed. And now you have credible messengers, DMH, and probation staff working together. That's a solution. The report was put out before it was ever read here, and staff had an opportunity to do something about it. So in those instances, you see the usefulness of it. The usefulness of what you did and what I did and what we should do. No. The reality of it is this. We live in a county that has an economy bigger than most of our states. I was in Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago in their juvenile facilities. You know what broke my heart? I stood in the back and I'm like, damn, this is just like being inside our facilities. A territory that's very poor after Maria destroyed their economy has all of the same things we have. Some college programs, TVs, but not the transformational type of programming like in New Beginnings. When you are able to go into these facilities across the country and in different territories and you see these things and you work constantly for years and years and years to find the solutions, it's not that I'm just taking credible messenger side. I got a partner, I'm not gonna say his name, close family friend that works for probation, does an incredible job. What does he say? We need more of y'all in here. We're not here to take jobs. We're here to work side by side with you because these are all of our children. And if we can't figure this out without attacking each other, without pointing blame and saying, okay, what are the solutions? Let's execute these solutions. One of the solutions that still has never come was putting a airport scanner in front of these two facilities. Think about it. The camps are all operating correctly. It's really just two of our facilities that we have to figure out. If you think about it, if that's the case, then let's figure that part out. Not as enemies, not as adversaries, but as people that want the same thing for my own biological children. I want for these young people that are inside. Do we still hold them accountable for the things that they did? Absolutely. But we don't torture them. We don't dehumanize them. We don't approach them without compassion and understanding. We treat them the same way we would treat our own sons and daughters. And so today is going to be my last day here as a Probation Oversight Commissioner. Take this as my resignation. It's been an honor to work with you. I just can't be on a commission that is constantly attacked, but also attacks. And I definitely don't like to be yelled at. So with that said, let's consider all working together to transform this system into one that's based on empathy, compassion, and the belief of second chance in human beings, especially our young ones. God bless. Take care.
Thank you. Commissioners? Questions, concerns? Wendy, please facilitate a vote.
Okay. I'm certain I will have the opportunity to do this again, but the honor has certainly been mine to work with Commissioner Lewis. We are going to vote, and we do still have a quorum present on the substance use disorder report, substance abuse prevention programming survey report, which is available for folks to look at on the website. It has been moved and seconded, and we took public comment. So I will facilitate the vote. Commissioner Kukani, Commissioner Terry, Commissioner Meredith, Commissioner Mundo. So 4-0, and I'm not capable of doing the rest of the statement about how many members we have of this commission anymore in my head. The motion carries unanimously. I would just like to take the opportunity to say thank you to Dr. Sarah Gongora for this report. She mentioned that the observations were all done at least in pairs, except for there was one constant member of those pairs. It was Sarah. And we are so fortunate to have a person with her background in, a doctorate in psychology and experience working with the Department of Mental Health and experience working in collaboration with Department of Children and Family Services, and then of course in probation facilities and with probation. It's extraordinary, although I will share that I don't think that's what makes her the best qualified to write a report like this, but it instead is the genuine care that she has for the young people and their families who are in the facilities. And so I hope that that comes through. I think it does in the text of the report, and I'm very proud to be part of the staff of the POC and representing what the commission is doing to be able to make a report that looks like this, that hopefully can be productive in helping bring about change in the facilities to take care of our kids. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Wendy. We will now move to item 8. We will hear a report from the PLC's new charges ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee received the probation department's new policy on when and how criminal charges can be brought against a youth in detention. The committee has not had a chance to meet together or with probation to discuss the newly drafted policy, and we will do so soon and report back to the full PLC before disbanding the ad hoc committee. I will share that I have a number of concerns and recommendations about the draft, and I hope that we can discuss those with the department and see some improvements before the policy is finalized. It's a good start. It was a little delayed because of all the issues that the new administration is dealing with. And we hope to quickly meet with the assigned person to work with us and include some best practices in the policy and practices. And as Commissioner Lewis said, look at it from the perspective of how do we want our children treated? How do we want our family members treated? It's an overwhelming consideration when my colleagues on the ad hoc and all the commissioners work with probation. It's always from that vantage point. So hopefully we can get quicker. I would love to be able to report back next time how many youth have been charged or they're really not charged by probation. They're basically an application for petition is presented. So I really would like to get a little more information back to everybody sooner rather than later. With that said, commissioners, any questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none. Wendy, do we have any live or written comment?
No written public comment on this issue. If you'd like to make a comment on WebEx, please use the raise your hand function or dial *3 on your phone. And we do have one commenter in the room. If there's anyone else who wants to comment, please stand up behind the podium and you can begin whenever you're ready.
Well, this one is, I was really want to communicate with the Commissioner Lewis, but he disappeared. But regarding this criminal charges against the youth, I actually wrote an essay about this in my class. So like our basketball coach told us, my basketball coach said, there's only two kinds of player in the world, coachable and uncoachable. So I do in support of the Commissioner Lewis with his idea, care first or second chance, third chance, fourth chance. But at the same time, I also recognize there are certain exceptions. So if you are a youth and then all of a sudden you rape 3 women, I do not believe that is something can be easily forgiven. If you are a youth in high school and then you robbed a woman and kill her and then take all her belonging, is a blood in your hand, I do not believe that it's something can be easily forgiven. If you are a youth and then you making fentanyl, selling fentanyl result the death of 20 or 30 people, or if you're a youth, you kill your mother, looting, rioting every year, every month, arrested by the LAPD, released by the LAPD every single week, on a regular basis for several years, I do not believe that you have a million chance. So I do not believe every single person deserves a second chance. I do not believe the second chance applies to 100% of everybody. But at the same time, I also believe that being a youth is not an excuse for being a criminal. Being a youth is not an excuse for every single bad thing that you do. Being a youth is not protected, prevented from any legal punishment, legal consequences. Seems like right now you are being a youth, you don't have to worry about anything other than committing a crime because you know you go home for free.
Go ahead, Isabella.
Again, I would just like to add, we've been here for about 2 hours and I think probation can see how frustrated we all are. So basically, I would just like to ask for answers, politely and respectfully. We just want to know how things can improve for, like Mr. Lewis said, our children, because it's somebody's brother, sister, daughter, son, cousin. We just want answers. So I would like to ask for answers, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that. No public comment online.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners? Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 9, which is matters not posted on the agenda. Commissioner Meredith?
I have a few. I'll be a little bit long-winded. The first thing is that when I was doing PREA training with Commissioner Canales, we talked about the fact that we always attack. We don't do a lot to build up the department, recognize the good they do. So we need to do that. And as fate would have it, last night, I happened to catch the Gridiron Gang again. For those that don't know, the Gridiron Gang was based on Campus Kilpatrick. Sean Porter and the late Paul Figa and where they did a transformation of a number of youth successfully, and it portrays, there were a couple of failures, but it portrays the success that caring probation officers do. And I think if somebody watches that film, they'll really appreciate the value of it. One of the actors in it, is Dwayne the Jet Rock Johnson, does a great job of portraying probation officers and the caring heart that they have. The second thing is there's another show made by Ben Lear and Scott Butnick called They Call Us Monsters, based on the compound at Sylmar. It's another outstanding show that talks about the youth, how they got there, and the successes and failures of what probation has done. So I just want to point out those two things because we do have a lot of great staff. I like though some of that great staff to get back to work. Now for my long-winded one, I've been a long proponent of the fire camp program. We used to have one up at Camp 17, AKA Page. Over the years, it's very successful. In 2017, they awarded a proclamation by then Supervisor and Mike Antonovich for their participation in the rescue of a 69-year-old woman lost in the hills when sheriffs and fire couldn't find her. They went out, hiked the hills, found her, packaged her up into a Stokes litter, carried her up to a hillside where a helicopter airlifted her, saving her life, and they were recognized. These were people that had been trained in this wildland crew program. Secondly, up at the old Camp 15, Horton, I believe it was, we had those youth recognized for going out and assisting in the Topanga fire, doing low-level work, but they were recognized for the effort. At that time, that spawned an interest in creating a program to revitalize the wildland fire program, to get them certified as qualified wildland firefighters, because there's 265 companies that would hire them, private companies. And as we know, here in the state of California, because of budget cutbacks, our inmate crews have been cut back. And this is an opportunity we would have to take people that are 18 and older, train them up, get them into a productive career of firefighting, and ultimately get hired. And I say that because the state has a program for inmate fire crews, which actually proved beneficial to one of my family members. Got himself in a little bit of trouble, went to a state custody facility, got into the wildland fire crew camp with the inmate crew. Through that, when he got paroled, he got into the Ventura School that's put on with ARC, Conservation Corps, and CDCR, graduated that, and now he's an engineer with CAL FIRE. Very beneficial program for public safety, very beneficial for the people we put into it. So I'm pushing with the 5th District, they know, because I've already been pushing this with them, they revitalized that program. So you're going to hear a future agenda item from me about 3-4 months from now, where I want to take this program. So that's it. Oh, I say one more thing. I'm sorry, the alibi. The whole reason for this is August 23rd will be the 56th anniversary of loss of Crew 44, which was out of Camp Scudder. They were lost along with a firefighter just above the city of Glendora and Azusa, right almost 500 yards where County Station 97 is. It was an unfortunate set of circumstances. They didn't have communication equipment, but the firefighter and 7 of our youth perished in that. And I worked with Supervisor Catherine Barger, her Justice Deputy Stephanie English, as well as at that time Chief McDonald and Chief Osby from Fire. And there is a plaque recognizing these fallen individuals. And we don't call them youth or inmate, we call them fire crew members on this plaque, publicly available at that facility. So I will do like I do every year, take some flowers up there and usually take the firemen some ice cream, because that's what firemen do. So I'm just pointing that out because the department historically has not really done anything. Ray Leva would join me, but prior to that, the department really hasn't done nothing. September, I'll be recognizing another crew we lost in 1956, along with Fire Captain Glenn Rocky, which is what our camp is named after. So when it comes down to August 23rd, just recognize that we did lose some people protecting the city and county of Los Angeles.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say for the public that the leadership team has been talking about some strategies to get some of these bigger topics into the public meeting, which is challenging. And I think there has been a decision to look at the opportunity to do some town halls that are focused on educating ourselves and the public about some of the different issues. In particular, we talked about the substance use and substance abuse treatment programs and how we might invite not just probation, but also the other providers to come in and talk about how things are going forward in a town hall setting where it's easier to schedule. We can do it virtually. People can attend after work. And then if there was an action to be made, we could agendize that at a future public meeting rather than take it there. I also want to say very clearly, we've been talking about bringing the bail deviation question around the adult side and how those reports are done to a meeting. And we may also start that through a town hall process. So I just wanted to be clear that your leadership team of Commissioners Mundo, Canales, and Terry are actively listening to the suggestions about how to agendize things appropriately. And we're going to do that a little more creatively with the use of town halls going forward.
Thank you. Commissioners? So agenda item 10 is the opportunity for the public to address the Probation Oversight Commission. Wendy, please facilitate public comment for us.
Thank you. We have received a couple of written public comments that were shared with commissioners before the meeting and are attached to the agenda. If you'd like to share written public comment, please email it to info@poc.lacounty.gov. And we will be accepting public comment on anything POC related, whether it's on the agenda or not today. If you want to raise your hand on WebEx, use the little raise your hand function. You have to be on WebEx to participate virtually. If you're on YouTube, you can't do so. And if you're calling in, please dial *3. And we'll start with comments in the room. You can begin. Okay. All right, we'll let Thomas go first.
All right. Once again, I wasn't here to point fingers or do anything, but I represent the officers. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to speak up for my officers. And, I'm going to point out what we do right. If our department is doing something bad, I'm going to point that out as well. You know, we do want to work together with everybody. It'd be nice to come here and come up with ideas. But you guys have seen, you know, as commissioners, this crowd has been packed up with people and it hasn't been probation friendly. So of course we come, you know, battle ready or whatever you want to call it. You know, there's a reason why I'm the only one that shows up to these things, you know, besides, you know, the other stuff, but there's reasons why I'm the only one to show up to this thing, you know, and it's not because, oh, we're not working. We're working together. We were working together. You'll see a lot more of us. So I just want to say, you know, once again, I'm not here pointing fingers, stating facts. And if, you know, if it's upsetting, a lot of things we hear is upsetting for us as well, but we got to take it, deal with it, and learn from it and go with it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cookie Lamel. I'm with the LA County Probation Officers Union. For the last, I would say, 6 months or so, I've been trying to set up a town hall for victims with the Probation Commission without success. But I'm listening now to all of these other interesting ways that you are saying that you're going to have these town halls in order to bring forward information to learn from it. And I think that if anybody or any group, we would certainly have learn a lot of things from what happens to victims.
Good. The previous comments reminded me something. So in my criminal justice courses, you know, when everybody talked about a Black Lives Matter, I stand up. I say the police lives matter, law enforcement lives matter. And I was immediately attacked by the whole class, including the faculty member. So I definitely feel how it's frustrating when you are the only one who's supporting the officers. Talking about, I think the Commissioner Lewis said something about a war on drug. It means war on poverty. I actually politely disagree with that. When we are talking poverty, I get here taking me more than 2 hours on the public transit because I don't have a car. I am right now on the food stamp, CalFresh. I have Medicare, Medi-Cal, because I do not have my private insurance. So when we are talking about a poor community member, poverty member, I am one of them. But that does not mean that being poor, giving me the excuse, giving me the justification to commit a crime. I can probably rob anyone right here. I don't know who can stop me right here. and I can just run away, go away, and I know the police never catch me, or either if they catch me, I will be released tomorrow. So I can do that all day long. But again, that is not the excuse, being a poor. I am being a poor. I sleep on the bench. I sleep in the park. I sleep in someone's garage. Until right now, I sleep on the sofa with two of my roommates. So I am poor. I am struggling for food. But again, that does not mean I can go to the street, rape someone, kill someone, rob someone, loot the store, rob a woman, or follow home robbery. That does not mean that is not my justification for being a poor. So when we are talking of being a poor, I am the member of the poor. If I'm not poor, I probably get here in 10 minutes. So I politely disagree with Commissioner Lewis that war on drug is the equivalent of war on poor, because I have so many classmates are poor, but we commit.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to make this as concise as possible. My understanding of this commission is that we are treating everybody impacted by probation as human beings, meaning the children detained, the adults on probation in the communities, the staff that work within these facilities. And so I don't think it's fair that we're not talking about creating safe spaces for all of these people. We can talk about programming, we can talk about who comes in and who leaves and who doesn't, but the individuals within the facilities don't feel safe. Folks don't feel safe coming into work. Children don't feel safe being there. So until we can create a safe space for them, it doesn't matter who comes in and provides a service, because they're not going to get the safety that they need to be able to engage and then practice, right? If we're not engaging the families in the programming that we're providing to them while they're detained, that skill set doesn't function in the community. So we have to collaborate, all of us, probation staff, community staff, programs, to get the youth to understand why we're trying to help them.
Thank you, Jessica. And we'll go next to our online commenters. We have a couple people with their hands up. Please click on the little hand icon or dial *3 on your phone if you want to speak. We'll start with Rosa Franco. Rosa Franco.
Hello?
Oh, great. You can begin.
Hi. Well, I only have one comment. So my son is in the LP and he has been there for a year. I'm not sure what's going on, but the canceling of parent visit is not acceptable. I take days off from work to see my son. You have parents waiting hours to see their children, and then visits are canceled. I asked to speak to a director and he never came out to speak to me. They need to do better at this. I don't want to give my name so what my son's name doesn't get in trouble. My son told me that the new director named Ford got into a boxing match with another kid. Is this being investigated? I am scared for my child there. Has POC seen this video? Don't directors get de-escalate training? Why are they physically fighting our kids? This fight happened in the unit R. So this is very concerning and alarming to me as a parent.
Thank you for calling in. I am sorry to say that the Probation Oversight Commission does not have the ability to review video that happens inside the facilities. However, the Inspector General does. So if you'd like to contact us, we can help you to pursue information about this. You can reach us at info@poc.lacounty.gov, or I'll also ask one of my staff members to send you my direct email and phone number so that you can contact us. And then the next hand up, I think, is Dolores Canales. Dolores, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay,
Happy to hear
great.
your voice.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dolores Canales, and I'm just calling in today as somebody listening into the entire meeting. And first of all, I'm so shocked about Commissioner Lewis stepping down. I just really want to commend and uplift all the work he has put in for the youth for, a decade now. But I'm also calling in because I will say, listening in, I was very frustrated at the fact that Chief Deputy Epps did not show up. And I get it, things happen. I mean, I'm in Missouri right now because my mother passed away. But what I did not understand is here you fire a bunch of people, you let go a bunch of people, you remodel everything, and you bring in actual experts. And while everybody kept giving Mr. Haney, I'm sure I'm not saying his name right, I'm trying to hurry up, grace that he just came in June. Now, mind you, they let people go and brought him in as an expert. You would think his prestigious title, being an expert, he would have been able to answer some of Commissioner Kakani's questions. So I don't understand what he is an expert in, because if you bring somebody in, they have to have full 1000% knowledge of what they're doing, especially bringing in from other places that Chief Deputy Epps specifically assigned these positions to. So I don't think that it should have been okay because he just came on in June, that he didn't have any answers whatsoever for Commissioner Kakani. And that's just my personal opinion today. I'm just calling in. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Vice Chair Canales. And I just, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your mother, and we'll keep you in my prayers.
Thank you. I share my sympathy with you, Commissioner Canales. And thank you for calling in. We look forward to seeing you when you get home. Ismail, I think that's the end. Okay, no further public comment.
Okay, agenda item 11, adjournment of the regular meeting of August 8, 2024. Thank you all for joining us and sharing your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel at lacountyplc.gov. To receive reminders about our upcoming meetings, visit our website at plc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email listing. And before we go, I just like to thank Commissioner Meredith for sacrificing his vision and allowing me to use his spectacles here. It helped a little. I still stumbled, but at least I was watching what I was stumbling. Can I have a motion to adjourn for today's meeting? Commissioner Kakani, seconded. Commissioner Terry with the 4 quorum. It's going to be a lot of repeats. Anyone opposed? I'm sorry. Commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote. Aye, aye. It is now 11:57 on motion by Commissioner Kakani, seconded by Commissioner Terry. Today's meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.